I don't know if this next piece will be as dumb as the others, as much as it's more just kind of absurd and angry comparatively. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Tucker Carlson, and Tucker, if you don't know, is a second generation rich kid, just like Trump, except I think he has real money, and recently, and he's currently, I guess, being blackmailed by Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz knows the name of the woman that Tucker pretended was his wife when they had dinner with Tucker and some underage girl a while back, allegedly. And so that's an ongoing kerfuffle they're going to have to work out personally. But Tucker Carlson is, either the creator of or benefiting from the Russell Brand playbook. Everything is, they are lying to you, you knew it, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes with, Tucker, this is pure absurdity. I'm sorry you're late to the game. It's preposterous. It's preposterously absurd. Oh, yes. Oh. And so this is, I guess, about the balloon? Yes, this is Fox News host Tucker Carlson calls out the Biden administration. Finally, someone has the guts to. Lies and is handling the Chinese spy balloon on Tucker Carlson.
And welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight on...
No, I don't feel welcome. Most people don't.
Saturday, the 21st of January, American intel services watched, maybe slack-jawed, as...
Yes, they just... What happened?
It's a white helium balloon with an enormous payload.
Yeah. Do you get the feeling he felt more comfortable because it was white?
Swinging beneath it, lifted off from central China and began to float east over the North Pacific on the way here to the United States.
Here.
Within a week, it had arrived. On January 28th, the balloon entered U.S. airspace over Alaska. From there, it traveled...
By the way, what the fuck is wrong with, Tennessee? You guys don't think there's anything worth seeing in Tennessee? Yeah, I guess the message from Fox News and everybody is, fuck you, Tennessee. Nothing to see here.
Over the Northwest Territories of Canada, and then it dropped back into the United States over Idaho. By last Wednesday, February 1st, it was spotted by civilians in the skies over southern Montana. A man staring out of the window of an office building in Billings saw what he thought was a UFO. It was too small to be a moon, he said.
That's no moon.
And so he began to take pictures, which soon appeared on social media. And then almost immediately, the airspace over Billings, over the entire town, was shut down. Commercial flights were diverted. F-22 Raptors arrived from a nearby Air Force base, along with refueling tankers and an AWACS surveillance plane. It was a big story. So it was at this point, when the existence of an unauthorized Chinese military aircraft over the continental United States,
when it sunk down from its initial height,
became impossible to hide or deny. At that point, officials around Joe Biden finally decided to tell him about it. Now, we don't know...
Why'd they never tell Trump about any of them before? Weird.
Joe Biden's reaction to this news, but we do know his response. Biden did...
A distinction without a difference, but I think it should have been shock, but it was probably joy. My friends have sent me a balloon for my birthday. Is it full of ice cream? Is that what we're supposed to think?
Did nothing. He did not order the balloon shot down. He did not call for sanctions or punishment of any kind against the Chinese government that sent it.
Yeah, until they checked it out. Weird.
It was not until this weekend, when the aircraft had traversed the entire United States, including...
Except for Tennessee, because fuck them.
At least one classified nuclear weapons installation, that an Air Force jet finally pierced it with a Sidewinder missile off the coast of South Carolina. Debris was still fluttering toward the ocean when the administration began telling lies, many of them, about what had happened.
Terrible.
That balloon posed no threat to American national security, the Biden administration claimed. Why? Because the balloon never transmitted data back to China.
How do you know?
Now, how could officials know that?
How do they know that? What if it has a special mega ray? I mean, using physics, there's only really two ways. Radio waves and a satellite connection would be the two primary ways you would send that back and forth. And you can check for both, and you can jam both if you're in range. So, but I mean, maybe they just have a magic dragon ray that flies or whatever.
They never explained. Nor did they say whether...
Yeah, it's a good idea. We figured out how to block the stuff, and we know it can't transmit. How do you be sure of that? Oh, we use this special device. You want to see a picture of the a diagram of how it's made? Yeah.
The Chinese military would send one of its aircraft all the way to the U.S. without a satellite uplink.
Might also be that their satellites are fucked.
Apparently, the Chinese just forgot. They're not very good at technology.
No, they aren't.
It was a nonsensical claim. But as far as we know, not a single reporter in Washington pressed the administration to explain that claim. And that's not really surprising. Reporters in Washington no longer dig, they transcribe. And what they...
And by the way, Tucker Carlson, not a reporter, and I guess someone in his office writes this shit up for him.
Transcribed next is almost enough to make you cynical about the role of the press in a free society.
Cynical about it? You mean that that we shouldn't have one? That a free society is better off without the press? It
turns out, and we learned this from unnamed officials on background, that allowing Chinese military aircraft to surveil your country, including your missile silos, is not the big deal the rest of us thought it was. In fact, it's routine. It happens all the time. Trump did it too. Quite a bit of it, actually. At least 3 Chinese spy balloons flew over this country while Donald Trump was president, and despite the anti-China rhetoric, he just let them pass. You didn't know that. Now you do, so settle down. This is normal.
Yes, it is, because Trump was trying to get a deal with them. I mean, go back and look at how Trump talked about Xi Jinping during the lead up to COVID.
In other words, everything Donald Trump did while president is bad, except this, letting Chinese spy balloons fly over the country. That's very good.
What? What? I'm all of a sudden, wait. So the idea is that they aren't implying that Trump did something bad by letting them go over. They're saying it's no big deal. It's fine. There were a bunch of them over him and everything's cool. Like it's a good thing. What? The Biden administration is so into Chinese spying and Chinese spy balloons that they were just trying to compliment Trump on letting them in. This is actually I was expecting more just sort of like pissy, impotent anger. But yeah, this is just as dumb as everyone else's take. Well done, if not more so. This is just, like, at least Judge Jeanine was reading from a sheet of actual details, however mangled her interpretation of them were. Listen to that again.
Except this, letting Chinese spy balloons fly over the country, that's very good. And we're taking a lesson from him. So virtually every news organization...
I got tuckered. I got Tucker face. Like, I understand. Like, I think his face does this all the time because he hears what he's about to say and his face can't stop it. So it just goes, what the fuck is about to come out of my face? Like, that's what it is. I always thought it was just his lack of comprehension of what other people were saying, or just a frozen look that he thinks has some value, and so he just holds it when other people are talking to make it sound like he's listening, right? That's the other thing. But it turns out, no, it's just his own face fighting against his stupid ideas.
In this country repeated that claim, including some who should know better. And of course, as soon as...
No one repeated that claim, that the Biden administration is saying that Chinese spy balloons flew over during the Trump administration, and that was good.
Credulous reporters wrote their dishonest stories. The Democratic Party and the television stations it controls repeated those stories as fact, which was the whole point. Watch.
They are saying we should have shot down the balloon the minute we saw it. I would use 2 words in answering these GOP criticisms. They are premature and they are political.
This is why we voted for Joe Biden, because imagine if this had happened under Donald Trump, the way in which the balloon...
By the way, it did happen under Donald Trump. It just didn't, nobody ever saw it in Billings.
...was taken down allows us to retrieve the parts of the balloons to see what was actually in there.
I'm just glad that there was...
Again, What part of that is false?
No damage or threat to U.S. aviation operations, and that this operation took place was done in a very effective, excellent way.
Some of the statements from the Republicans, especially in the Senate, have just been asinine, and these jackasses going out again, I'll get my shotgun, I'm going to shoot down the balloon. Seriously, they make clowns of themselves.
So the balloon shut down the airspace over Billings, Montana, including the...
Yeah, all the flights coming in and out of Billings, Montana. Billings, hold on. Let's go with Billings, let's find out. Let's take a little trip, shall we? Billings, Montana, big sky country. Here we go. It's Billings, Montana. Is Billings, Montana? Here we go. This is Google. Is Billings, Montana a good place to live? Billings is a fun and adventurous town. If you love trails and breweries, the town is perfect for you. We have always felt safe in our neighborhood and in most places around town. Like most cities in America, Billings does have drugs and crime. That's the people asked. That was the answer. Billings, Montana reviews in niche is the first thing that came up. Why is Billings, Montana famous? That's a good question. The city serves as a gateway to Yellowstone National Park and Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. It's home to the Montana State University, founded as okay, blah, blah. And it does have drugs and crime. What percentage of blacks are in Billings, Montana? Holy shit, 1.1%. Can you... Native Americans 4.7%. Everybody else is fucking zero. White as shit. And you can tell that, like, a bunch of people are looking up, like, where's someplace really white I can move? Like, that's the third most asked question? Really? Holy shit. Okay, City of Billings. Let's see. Billings, Montana, official website. Here we go. Population, 119,000 people. Clearly a giant metropolitan site. They've got a library. There's a court. There's a thing on public safety. Here's a map. There's good old Billings. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, Billings, Montana. Let's see. Let's go. What are the pros and cons of living in Montana? Pros and cons: an amazing outdoor setting, limited effects of urbanization, reasonable cost of living, plenty of jobs and education options, interesting residents, extreme diverse weather, lacking in urban amenities, too many tourists. There you go. That's fucking Billings. There you go. So Billings, Montana, and let's go. What's the airport there? Billings Airport, Montana. There's the official website. Let's check out the airspace over Billings, which is mostly military. There you go. Look at that. This guy's going where he's going on time. Here's some flights. This is one of those airports, and trust me, as a comedian, I know it well, where you miss a flight or a flight is canceled, and you go, when's the next flight? And they go, tomorrow or early the next day. You can get out by Tuesday morning. That's a phrase I've heard multiple times in places like Billings, Montana. There you go. And there's one American Airlines flying to Dallas. That's a hub. One United flying to Denver. That's a hub. And then another late American flight coming from Phoenix. I see. And then look at this Cape Air shit. These are like this is like getting you everywhere else. Just regional as fuck. Okay, so the airspace, obviously, I'm surprised you guys didn't feel it. It was just like another COVID lockdown.
The airport, and as it moved east, commercial pilots said they were afraid of it. They were afraid of
oh, dear God. Emotionally?
Hitting it. So it's funny to see the
They were afraid of hitting it at 35,000 feet.
Transportation secretary who's in charge of all of this tell us it posed no threat. No threat.
It was at 60,000 feet. Yeah, it's not going to hit your plane. I'm just saying. If you're a commercial airliner, it's not going to hit your plane. If you're in a little puddle jumper, it's definitely not going to hit your plane.
The transportation. But the best is the dismissal of anyone who has concerns. It's those Republicans again with their moonshine and their shotguns and their extra chromosomes, thinking it's okay to shoot down Chinese spy balloons. When every sophisticated person...
No. It has nothing to do with whether it's okay. They can't do it. Shooting guns up into the sky to try and hit something 60,000 feet away ends up with bullets in your neighbor's yard, dummy.
Person knows. Donald Trump himself knew the best way to handle Chinese spy balloons, let them pass. Again, just like Trump did. Trump, he's good all of a sudden.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what that argument is. That's so odd. It's like, is anybody else, like it's like somebody pulled a fucking fuse in his forehead. Like the lack of like logic and comprehension. I mean, it's always bad. He's being dickish. It's one thing, I don't like blaming Trump and then saying he's good all the time. It's such a mixed message. Like, I don't even think he understands what his writers are setting up for him to say, so he's filling in gaps. This is really fucked up.
So the question is, did Donald Trump let Chinese military aircraft float over the United States unmolested while he was president? Well, someone asked him. He says he didn't.
Yeah. Because he didn't see him because he wasn't looking. That was the point. And what else is he going to say? Yeah, I did, and I'd do it again, see? Get the fuck out of here.
In an interview yesterday, Trump said he had no idea there were any Chinese
yeah, that was the problem, stupid.
spy balloons over the United States when he was president. And he seemed to mean it.
He seemed to mean it. Yes, yes, he was busy golfing. We get it. I don't think he actively allowed Chinese spy balloons to go over the fucking country. I don't think he gave a fuck or cared to know. He didn't read his PDB. He didn't read other stuff and go, wait a minute, guys. Anybody notice that when this happened, we got this, like, obviously the satellites aren't picking this stuff up. You say we intercepted these from a spy. This is an angle you're not going to get from a satellite. Like, there's no moment where he's fucking going over paperwork in the residence at the White House and like fucking Sherlock Holmes. He didn't give a fuck.
But it wasn't just Trump. Trump's former national security advisor said the same thing. He said he'd never heard anything about Chinese spy balloons over the country.
By the way, Flynn or...
And you would think that he would have heard. Then
No, not if they weren't tasked to look for them. That was the point.
General in charge of NORAD, Glenn Van Herk, had the very same reaction. Quote, it's my responsibility to detect threats to North America. I will tell you that we did not detect those threats. So,
right, it doesn't mean the threats weren't there.
Somehow NORAD, the most sophisticated, supposedly, monitoring system in the world, missed those Chinese spy balloons too, 3 of them. And by the way, so did the director of national intelligence, the man whose job it is to know America's secrets. He said he'd never heard of Chinese spy balloons over the country during the Trump administration. Here's former DNI John Radcliffe.
Do you remember during the Trump administration when photographers on the ground and commercial airline pilots were talking about a spy balloon over the United States that people could look up and see even with the naked eye, and that a media that hated Donald Trump wasn't reporting? I don't remember that either because it didn't happen.
Yeah, we knew. We know they were in the range of 80,000 to 100,000 feet. One of the reasons why this became a problematic one was because it was lower than that. And by the way, apparently the one near the beginning is why they saw was closer to 80 to 100,000 feet, and they ratcheted up their surveillance. Hence this one. Biden administration offers to brief Trump officials on past Chinese spy balloon incursions. Officials in the last administration denied that the airships had flown over the U.S. on their watch. The Biden administration is willing to brief former Trump officials on newly discovered intelligence that China sent spy balloons into U.S. airspace during their time in charge. The offer, described by senior Biden administration officials on Sunday night, comes as former President Donald Trump and senior members of his national security team say they were never briefed on such an incursion by Beijing sent aircraft. This information was discovered after the prior administration left. The intelligence community is prepared to offer key officials from the Trump administration briefings on China's surveillance program, one of the officials said. The official, along with several others, asked not to be named in order to discuss sensitive information. Briefers would also be willing to discuss Beijing's similar operations in East Asia, South Asia, and Europe over the last several years. The official said the proposal to bring the Trump officials is the latest development following the military shoot-down of a Chinese spy balloon on Saturday, 7 days after it entered the U.S. airspace.
It didn't happen, said the former director of national intelligence. You can see why he thinks that. So again, according to media accounts, at least one of these 3 Trump-era Chinese spy balloons floated all the way to Texas in the center of the country. And yet inside the U.S. government at the very highest levels, no one seemed to know that it happened. Well, how could that have occurred, really?
Well, obviously it's a 9/11 was an inside job kind of a thing, clearly.
Well, the Biden administration had an answer. Speaking on background to its shills in the media, unnamed
All right, well, at least we're not putting our thumb on the opinion scale.
officials explained that these Chinese spy flights were actually never reported to President Trump or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or even to the Secretary of Defense. Why weren't they reported? Because they weren't important enough. They were, quote, relatively minor territorial incursions. Okay, so a Chinese military aircraft hovering over Texas, more than 1,000 miles from the Pacific Ocean, is a minor territorial incursion.
Well, it was considered that during the Trump administration.
That's what they said.
They also didn't. Trump notoriously hated bad news.
It's pure absurdity.
Isn't it?
Once again, no reporter in Washington pushed back. They just repeated the lie. And then without warning, the White House changed its talking point, undermining the first lie. Actually, they explained today, nobody knew that Chinese spy balloons were floating over America during the Trump administration. We didn't know. We just found out pretty recently. Watch the smarter but more dishonest White House spokesman spin that tale.
I can tell you that we discovered these flights after we came into office. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how we did the forensics. I think you can understand that we're going to be careful about that.
They're not going to get into the specifics of the forensics. Oh, the forensics. But the one thing they were really...
God, the desperation. By the way, you know what? I take it back. I think the Republican talking machine is well oiled and is running at like it's got a light purr to it. It's like an old, dare I say, Corvette.
Really shocked by when they took control of the U.S. government was how soft on China Trump was. They had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
He was letting these Chinese spy flights go over. They were shocked.
No. It was the part where they showed up at Mar-a-Lago and had dinner with him that was the problem.
As shocked as anyone would be. That's what they're saying. Now, of course, once again, they can't say more because it's classified. Wish we could. Sorry. So what is the real...
By the way, there's often, the God of the gaps idea that atheists complain about science and other people's belief systems, that if they can't explain it with science, they spackle the hole with God using the God of the gaps theory. This would be the either conspiracy of the gap story or the collusion of the gap story in their particular parlance in regard to Biden administration being owned by China. That's you'll constantly see that. It must be the
real story here. Honestly, we don't know. The Pentagon ignored our many questions today. Of course they did, because we're not going to
because they're stupid.
Transcribe them.
Not the Pentagon. The questions.
So once again, the people who owe you the truth are lying to you.
All right. This is so does Tucker and like Tulsi Gabbard and Russell Brand all like have a phone tree together?
So all tonight we
where they come up with these titles and chyrons?
know with certainty is that the Chinese military just flew an aircraft that reportedly contained explosives over the entire length of the United States and got away with it.
No, they didn't. We watched the whole thing. It didn't explode, and we shot it down over water. They got away with it during the Trump administration. But why would you believe that? Because it didn't, you never saw it. So why, thank God we never saw it, so you don't have to believe it was there.
That seems like a bad precedent.
No, the bad precedent would be leaving it up there and not doing anything about it.